All right, welcome to the October 6th AFC meeting. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, an act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, this meeting will be conducted in person and via remote means in accordance with applicable law. This means that members of the public body, as well as members of the public, may access the meeting in person or via virtual means. In-person attendance will be at Memorial Hall, inside Town Hall at 34 West Main Street, and it is possible that all members of the public body may attend remotely, with in-person attendance consisting of members of the public. This meeting may be accessed remotely or via the Zoom link in the posted agenda. When required by law or allowed by the chair, persons wishing to provide public comment or otherwise participate in the meeting may do so by in-person attendance or by accessing the meeting remotely, as previously noted. Additionally, the meeting will be broadcast live in real time via Verizon Channel 28 and Charter Channel 192, or via Westborough TV's online platforms at westboroughTV.org and youtube.com/WestboroughTV. So, just so everyone is aware, we did post an updated meeting agenda today. This meeting's agenda includes our public comment, conversation about the new recreation center, pool updates, and then committee discussion on the special town meeting article warrants, discussion on our R&R, AFC liaison reports and assignments, conversation about any future draft agendas or meeting dates, and hopefully an early-ish adjournment. So that said, is there anyone here for public comment? You can come up to the podium. You just want to introduce yourself and give us your address.
Thank you. My name is Ellen Google. I live at 84 Fisher Street. I chair the Active Transportation Safety Committee, and I'm here to tell you that this afternoon our committee met, a quorum being present, voted unanimously to deliver this letter of support for Article 6, the BWALT, funding for the BWALT to match the Mass Trails grant. I brought copies of the letter. It was sent in email, but it just happened this afternoon, so that's why I'm here tonight, just to let you know that, because the window was so short, and you may not have read your emails. But just to sort of summarize a couple of points, we think it's important to keep the momentum going. There is currently a grant pending with Mass Trails for $400,000. It really wouldn't be great to turn it back, so I think we should support voting for what's on the warrant there, the $61,000. It's a $100,000 match. $38,000 is coming from other articles that, leftovers from other BWALT, article motions that have passed. So $61,000 is what's needed. There's a couple things about this grant. With Mass Trails, the town has been able to repurpose these grants. So if it was found that it wasn't for this exact purpose, the town manager's office has in the past renegotiated what the funds could be used for. It would probably still have to be used on BWALT, but whatever it is. I think this is a bargain. As you know, Mass DOT will pay 100% of construction costs once the town has finalized design. So far, we've been doing design with Mass Works, Mass Trails, ARPA funds, Mass Works, what else did I say? And Complete Streets funds. So by all measures, it's a bargain. And the other second point is that I want to just tell you that town meeting voters have supported BWALT articles over and over again. There have been no less than 11 articles over the last 10 years between fall of 2013 and spring of 2023. Altogether, they have averaged 82% support, from ranging up to 98%. The most recent vote in 2023 asked for $110,000. It was the largest ask we ever did from town meeting, and that passed by 87%. So we don't believe there's any reason. We don't think there's any reason to believe that the residents, the overwhelming desire for BWALT, is any less now than in the last 12 years. And I did print 9 copies of this because I know there's 9, so I don't know. Just so you can distribute them. Okay. So thank you very much.
come on up.
Hello, I'm Ken Kelly, 10 Hancock Way, Westborough. I'm also on the executive board of Friends of BWALT. My remark this evening is short, just to bring your attention to the letter sent October 1st to this board, as well as to the select board, the planning board, and the planning department staff by David Baumgart, our president. His letter encourages your support for the placing of warrant Article 6 relating to funding for Section 2 of BWALT on the town warrant, thus enabling our citizens to vote their support for funding to complete the design for BWALT Section 2. David will be attending this Thursday's meeting of the Advisory Finance Committee to comment in more detail. Here's a copy, just one, of my letter, which you all should have already received. David's letter.
Thank you. That is all we have for public comment. It looks like, so we have Articles 7 and 12 noted. One of them, I assume, is just DPW, correct?
They accept all of the state.
Yeah, okay. I couldn't remember the address. Do we want to do that one really quickly first, and then we could talk community center? Is that all right with you, Chris?
I don't have a whole lot to say other than you've read the article. It's for an acceptance of some roads associated with the development. The recommendation to the select board last week was that we, well, actually, the select board agreed to extend to the developer additional time for him to complete work that still needs to be done with the subdivision. And so that deadline is now prior to town meeting. And so prior to town meeting, we'll provide an update on whether they met the requirements to accept the roads. And I guess at that point you can make your decision. At least that's my thought on how you would do it.
Okay. So I assume that's just one we'll want to.
Yeah, so I remember at the planning board or one of those meetings, there was some controversy or whether that stuff was all done. So when you say before town meeting, it would be next week, or
Yeah,
I mean,
I
it's only a
think,
couple
so
weeks
we were
away.
asked to give an update, like a written update on the 17th, which is the Friday before town meeting. And then my understanding is the select board was planning to hold their meeting just prior to town meeting that evening and making their determination. So
So we probably want to vote.
I would
I
assume
think we
Monday
just
night.
voted on the
Yeah.
floor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's perfect.
Okay.
Other than that, aside from the stuff that isn't done, is that obviously the physical roadway and infrastructure is all to your liking. It's more just some things. That
Yeah, the
need to be
specific
checked
issue
out.
is related to the streetlights that were installed. They're not to National Grid standards, and there's some issues with what they did, the developer did, so they need to correct that. They're working with National Grid to do that. But we wouldn't accept the road until they're to the standards that National Grid requires, because we're going to be eventually assuming ownership of those and paying National Grid. And there's various tariffs associated with streetlights, and the tariff that we would assume requires that the streetlights be what National Grid demands.
Perfect.
That's it.
All right. I figured that would be a quick one,
Yeah.
and we could just check that one off the list.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's a good sign. New laptop, so first time I'm running a slideshow from it. I'm Kim Foster. I'm the Assistant Town Manager, and I'm here with our Recreation Director, Jen Kirkland, and DPW Director, Chris Payant, to talk to you about Article 7, which is the Community Center Pool Repair Project. Just a brief recap, this was a project that we attempted to bring forward in the spring. It was on the warrant, but we ultimately passed over the article based on, at the time, bids came in higher than what we had anticipated, and given that we had one bid, we decided to go back out in the fall, anticipating that contractors might have more time in their schedules during the winter, given that we have an indoor pool, hoping for better results. So fast forward to, October 2nd, we had bid openings. We did rebid it. We again only received 2 bids. We again had one of those bids non-responsive. They basically did not comply with the requirements of the bid document. So that again leaves us with a single bidder, Weston and Sampson, and the amount of the bid is for $529,000 for the pool repair work. The article is actually seeking additional funding beyond just the pool itself. It includes the HVAC pool pack units, which, if you recall, we held off on including those in the spring town meeting request, where we obtained funding to replace other rooftop HVAC units. This also includes, I'm going to show you the very specifics right here. So it's the $529,000 for the pool repairs. We're including contingency at 7.5%. This is typical when you're talking about a construction project, particularly in a building that we only recently owned, and given that the pool has been empty for a bit, in case we encounter some unforeseen circumstance, the contingency is there for that. There's $220,000 associated with the purchase and the installation of the pool pack, the HV units. Sprinkler repairs, these are required based on code, and that is $11,000. So that is where we end up with a grand total of $799,000, $799,675. So that is the number that we will be bringing forward to town meeting. So I believe in the spring we talked about the specific repairs, but for those of you, just to refresh, we had been working with a designer doing design for the community center fit up, focused largely on fitting up the lower level for a senior center. But included in that scope of work was also some other work, including one of their architects who specializes in recreation and pools. Included in that was for that individual to develop some bid specs for the pool. So based on the architect's review, as well as some of the existing reports, they prepared a scope of work that includes the items on the screen. If you've seen pictures or seen the pool yourself, you know that it is currently not filled with water. When we took possession of the building, we had it drained. So ultimately, the depth of the pool will be reduced by about 6 inches. We will also repair filters and a host of other repairs that are needed. So again, one of the reasons, many reasons why we're bringing this project forward, but a few that we just want to hit up on. This is a frequently requested amenity. We have, going back to the senior needs assessment completed in 2023, it was identified by a large number of respondents. We had over 1,500 respondents to that survey, and it was an often cited desired amenity. We also heard about the desire for the pool to be operational once we acquired the building, and the architect we engaged did a lot of community engagement, including a survey. The other piece is Jen has a lot of users of the space commenting on their interest and desire, and they're looking forward to the pool being functional. Once the pool is repaired, it also allows the town, and specifically the recreation department, to expand its programming and provide opportunities, aquatic opportunities for residents of all ages. We are looking at it currently. It is an underutilized area of that space. It takes up a significant amount of space, and it's not like you can use that space for something else until it's repaired. Lastly, the thing that we're going to talk a little bit more about tonight is once the pool repairs are completed, we envision a program model that operates similarly to the other recreation programming, where the pool will be self-sufficient and self-sustaining in terms of revenue generated. And we want to talk to you a little bit more about that tonight. Just in case you're not familiar with the current recreation model, Jen offers a host of programs, most of which are bring in revenues to cover their costs. I don't think the numbers and the detail is important here, but she did pull an example of their ever popular rec basketball program that does generate, it generates more in revenue than the expenses. So just so you know, that net is then funneled back into and helps support other recreation programs throughout the year. So the model, we'd be looking to replicate this model with the pool, where the revenues would cover the expenses. And just to be clear, we don't anticipate this model recouping the costs of the repairs that we are bringing forward to town meeting. This would be ongoing operations. So we wanted to talk to you about a model. This has been something we've been talking and working through various iterations since the spring. And we wanted to talk to you about where we've landed today. So in looking just very at large expense and revenue buckets and kind of big categories under expenses, we have maintenance, which includes the chemical treatment of the pool, the testing associated with that, cleaning of the pool, repairs. These are minor repairs. And many of these things, they can vary based on the use of the pool. So the more use, the more chemicals, for instance. Testing, there are requirements, the Board of Health, and there are regulations. So in terms of, you know, just a sort of a general, these are talking about maintenance for your use, regular use, daily almost use of the pool. There are also significant expenses associated with the utilities to operate that pool. And then one of the other buckets is staffing. So the certified pool operator is a requirement, and that's an individual or individuals who are qualified to administer the chemicals, and then they're responsible for testing, all of the documentation and reporting that goes with that. So the certified pool operator is critical, and that's a function that has to happen daily. And then there would be lifeguards and instructors that we would need. Looking on the revenue side, under the model that we envision, we would have contract fees coming into the town or to the recreation department. The model that we're proposing, a vendor would pay a monthly fee to have effectively exclusive use of the pool during certain hours of the day. And during those hours, they would be charged with providing swim lessons. They can do lifeguard training. So we have a diagram, almost a schedule that illustrates this that I'll get to in a moment. So those contract fees would be a significant monthly revenue source. Then there would be program fees collected by the recreation department, because the hours during the day where the pool is not programmed by that contractor Jen would be able to have open swim, lap swim, maybe some senior programming, some other designated programming, as well as special events, a Friday night family swim, a haunted swim, things like that periodically. And then the other thing would be birthday parties. And if the pool is not open, right now the recreation department is not open to the public on Saturday afternoons, she could program that for birthday parties and other opportunities like that we envision arising over time. So when you look at these, not the best way to illustrate it, but on the next slide, we expect that the contract fees under this model would cover the maintenance that we've identified, utilities, and the certified pool operator. So on a monthly basis, those contract fees would cover those expenses. And that would leave the staffing during the open swim hours, if you will, where we would, through the vendor we've identified, we would engage, the vendor would provide lifeguards. So to try and illustrate how this works, here's a sample pool schedule. This is just a sample. The blocks and the colors can move around. But right now, if you look down at the blocks from 4 to 7 p.m. and then on your Saturday mornings, this shows the time where the contractor, the vendor, would have use of the pool, would be paying the contract fees, and they would be programming swim lessons and running those lessons. They would be responsible for staffing those. They would be responsible for sign up. So all of the revenue associated with that program goes to the vendor. The vendor then pays the town for use of the pool. When you look earlier in the day, and again, this is just to illustrate. So we show on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we have some exclusive time for seniors. That may be free swim. We may have aqua aerobics classes. There could be a variety of things going on during that time. And then we also show in the purple, those are just intended to be open swim or available for programming for other, family classes, type of things. So just there's a variety of things. We also know because the pool depth is uniform, it also allows that you can divide the pool. You can have lap swimming. You can have a couple of lanes open for laps while you have something programmed on the other side. We understand that, that depth pool at 3 feet 6 inches is ideal for the aerobics classes, other aquatics classes. I didn't realize this, a lot of people use it for physical therapy. They can get in and they can walk in it, as well as that depth is still suitable for people swimming laps. So the idea here is during the open swim time, the cost to the town would be the lifeguards. Similar to the way the other recreation programs operate, the fees associated with these programs, with open swim, would be expected to cover those costs. Any questions so far? So again, just back to the way we would structure the contract, we would have to go out to bid, but we would look to partner with a vendor to provide the aquatic services, including as part of that, they would staff the pool with a certified pool operator. The vendor pays the town a fee for the use of the space during designated hours, a designated number of days a week, and we would structure that we expect that those fees would cover the maintenance cost inclusive of chemicals and the utilities. So one of the other things we've talked about is we would want the pool to be open priority to Westborough residents. But again, the way the other recreation programs work, we can open up where we have room and we can have slots for non-residents, and we do typically charge a higher fee for those slots as well. One of the other benefits of this model is we, the town, are not trying to hire lifeguards. Many people know that we have not been able to staff the beach for the past few summers. Just given the challenge in hiring lifeguards, using a vendor who has them available and can staff would help on that front. We also look at it as perhaps an opportunity to provide lifeguard training and incentivize folks to come through that training and then build our own pool of lifeguards for the beach going forward. So I think that's sort of the highlights of what we're looking at now. But happy to answer questions, and Jen can speak more to some of the specifics if it's around existing rec programming.
Go ahead.
Everybody has questions.
We all have questions.
Just two quick ones. Did I notice that Sunday was not expected to be open? So it really is just 6 days. That was accurate to the extent that it was.
It's a starting point. Right
Okay.
now, the Recreation Department is open Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, 8 to 4:30. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 to 4:30. Tuesday, Thursday, 8 to 8. And then Saturday, they are open 8 to 12. So for right now, that's our starting point. And as we hopefully grow additional programming over there, we would look to expand, but we wanted to show where we would start.
Thank you. And Jen, I know you are located in literally in the heart of everything that's going on there. I'd love to get your sense of what the feedback has been. Not just, oh, we want a pool, but are the kinds of things we're talking about here going to meet the need of what people are asking for?
I think so. Like Kim said, everyone, not everyone, but every second person that walks through the door, what's going on at the pool? I miss having swim lessons here. When we offer swim lessons, things like that. We're starting now. We're going to be offering birthday parties, not in the pool, but just in general. And I think we've had questions and inquiries around that. So I think that those will be popular. I definitely think in just talking to, this vendor and a few other people around swim lessons and aquatic programming, it's tough to find affordable options, and I think that we'll be able to provide the town with this amenity that isn't widely accessible. There's other places you can get swim lessons, but Boston Sports Club was a place where people were taking swim lessons, and now it's gone. So I think that I think it should be successful. But
Thank you.
So I think personally speaking, I would love to have a swimming pool there because my kids love swimming, and having something closer to the home definitely helps. And swimming, I think, is something I encourage everybody should learn. So I definitely would think that swimming pool is great. But I think my questions are just a couple of questions, and they are more related to just the fact that it's more money related. So I think cost-wise, I don't have any concerns, but my only question is related to having one bid. Was it because, this is the wrong time of the year where we have got only one bid and the other two did not? Was it because of the pricing? Because my concern only gets that when I personally put anything on my home for any project, I get at least 20-30 calls. So having one bid really concerns me. So if you could answer on that, that would be great. And I think the other is on the phase one itself, that the fact that we are right now in the phase one of this building where the senior center is there, my concern is having these installations done. Would this have any redo effort needed if, let's say, you are doing a phase two where something may not fit? Or has that been thought through as well?
Okay. The first question about the bidders. So we worked with the architect, and the hope was that going out to bid in the fall, we might get a couple more bids. But he was clear this is somewhat specialized work, and there are a handful of vendors that he's aware of in Massachusetts. So, his concern was not that it's often driven by workload. There are vendors who, the quote that we got, the bid that we received that we had to reject, in both times, the bids that had to be rejected came from out of state. So part of it is in Massachusetts, I think the landscape is sometimes challenging. We have other projects where we get far fewer bids than we hope for, but at this point, it's the same bidder who provided a bid in the spring. The price did come down, so I think we're interested and prepared to move forward with this bid.
Okay. And the second question, sorry,
The second question.
was on the impact on
Yeah.
the further phases, investing right now in this unit, would that have any kind of impact or something which is, why will not have any impact if, let's say,
Yeah.
we are going for more construction in phase 2?
It's not expected to because of where it's situated, excuse me, and the nature of the work. Once the pool repairs are done, the pool repairs are done. So it's not, when it comes time to do fit up on the first floor or to do additional fit up on the second floor, there's nothing in the pool that will need to be redone, and there's nothing by virtue of doing the pool that impacts the rest of it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I noticed, because I looked it up in our sheet, but this is about $43,000 less than the last bid that from the spring, so there was some reduction anyway. I'm very much supportive of having swim lessons. I think they're super important to have, given the fact that Chauncey's been closed from swim lessons for a while now. I think that's an important feature for the town to be able to offer. I'm curious about, my question would be, and granted you threw up a straw schedule, but there are no real hours there for free swim for anybody that, I'll say, works for a living.
Right.
It's all morning hours. There's not one evening a week, not 2 evenings a week, or a couple hours or an hour on Saturday or something. Is that necessary to hit the numbers that you needed to hit, or what was the thought behind not having some more availability?
This is just a starting point to
Okay.
show based on the current schedule, really. We've talked about the idea that early morning swim a couple of days a week. I think if we move forward with the repairs, the next step is then we would need to put together a bid document or a RFP and go out for a vendor. And I think that's where we would start to refine. And I think one of the things we would also do is similar to, again, what Jen does with our other recreation programs is you try different things and you see what works. I mean, we've never run a pool at that location, so we don't know where we will have the highest demand and when. And certainly we would try to make sure that if there's a desire for early swim, then, they can open up and do that.
I obviously can't be certain because you haven't put out the RFP, but how certain are we that we could find a contractor who would provide the all-important CPO,
Yep.
whatever it's called,
Yeah.
CPO, and also be able to offset because that's a pretty key element to this. This plan is really based
Yep.
on finding that.
No, we know there is a vendor. We've spoken to a vendor. We've just in doing some research and our due diligence without committing anything. We've gotten a lot of feedback, and we understand that it's a model that they would be able to staff. And so certainly we'd go through the process. And if there are other entities out there that could offer this, they would certainly be encouraged to bid on it.
Awesome, thanks.
A couple questions.
Hi.
Oh, was that?
That was
That was
Beth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'd just like to say that I'd like to see us encouraging the pool be open on Saturday and Sunday, and if, because of the balance of hours, it needs to be closed on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, so be it. But I think that people who work in town, students, more people are able to, take advantage of the pool on the weekend, and it seems like at least the preliminary discussions are really closing that.
I think we're
Just-
open to that. We were just, again, the schedule was just meant to illustrate based on the current hours. And I think there's between now and hopefully moving forward with repairs and having this operational, we would refine what hours we were looking to be open.
Actually use it.
Yeah. I mean, our interest is in meeting the community's need and desire.
Okay.
So a couple questions for me. On the original presentation to the town, when we purchased the community center, what was the estimate to get the pool functional? Because I'm looking at an $800,000, amount of money that's going to have to come from free cash or some availability of funds to support it. And this is a capital investment or improvement.
Christy Williams, town manager. When we first initially looked at the pool, we identified certain things. In terms of the total cost, we never presented an amount to the town. I will say that when we were going through the phases for the whole fit up, just kind of going back to a question that was asked earlier, the architect did recommend pulling that project out and funding it through our capital plan if we weren't ready to move forward. But the number that he had put together at that time was just over $400,000. But I think it's important to remember that it did not include the pool pack HVAC unit that we were talking about, which is about $220,000 of this article. And that was because that was looked at separately with the HVAC unit. So we took that out of the HVAC unit article, as Kim said earlier, and moved it to the pool because it didn't make sense to move forward with the pool pack HVAC unit if we weren't moving forward with the pool. So I would say it's about $150,000 more than what the architect was presenting in the community engagement.
Although in this manner, we don't have to pay the architect fee or owner's project manager fees on top of the
Right.
expense.
Right.
True,
So the architect helped
by
us.
breaking it out
Right.
to us
But we don't
capital
have, right.
project.
It doesn't have need to be OPM. That's correct.
Going back to that CPO model, how confident and how much due diligence has been done to ensure that you can cover the costs, the maintenance, I think you said maintenance, utilities. and those-
We were able to speak with a vendor who operated the pool when it was run under Boston Sports Club. So we were able to, they shared some information, and so we're confident that the model would cover those expenses.
What about, having been I am a pool owner, so things always break every single year between, the filter breaks, the heating system breaks, everything, there's issues with pipes and stuff. So all those will be more incremental. It always ends up being more expensive than you think, is kind of my point. So my concern is ensuring that the expense model is conservative enough that it covers all the expenses, so we don't end up with an exposure to the town.
Yeah. The maintenance that we're carrying in the model covers basic maintenance
But in the repairs,
in repairs, but the idea being if we invest $800,000 and we can do regular maintenance, we hopefully enjoy a run before we have significant expenses. And as we take in revenue, we would look to find a way to have that support those expenses.
one other question. When we look at comparison to other facilities that offer swimming, like, the Y, Westborough Swim, Shrewsbury Swim, kind of close by. Have we looked at what their capacity model looks like? Are they over capacity or under capacity? Because if we're going to be offering services, we're going to be drawing away from some of those that currently, Westborough residents are using their services.
So
Just to understand, is it really going to be full? Are you going to be able to, create the capacity that you think?
we expect we will. A couple of factors. One, we heard from the vendor who ran swim lessons when it was Boston Sports Club. At the time that they closed, they had over 330 students that they were providing swim lessons to. we've been told that they regularly get calls, when are you going to reopen? Are you going to reopen in Westborough? So we believe the demand is there in part through their ability to bring back folks that they had in the past. But we've also heard from residents, from parents, that it's challenging to find swim lessons. And a lot of times if they're offered, I mean, one of the things when you looked at that sample schedule, if we went with that model, multiple nights, weekends, it gives folks a variety of opportunities. So we do believe that we would be able, that there's a need.
And then will this have a staffing issue for Jen, for the rec department? Will you need to add staffing?
No, so we would contract, this vendor would have a pool of lifeguards that we would employ.
Oh, for the CPO, but what about for programs?
So any swim lessons, they would run them and they would staff them themselves.
Birthday parties, things like that?
So we would need our lifeguards, but we could contract with them. They have a pool of lifeguards. They have a pool of lifeguards.
Good one.
Yeah.
I didn't clock that. They have a pool of lifeguards that we would be able to use, so we're not out trying to independently hire lifeguards like we do at the beach. So that would be the only staffing. And then we have retained for, you know, as Kim said, we're open anyway Tuesday and Thursday nights, but if there's a Wednesday night program that we decide that we want to run or something, we've started to hire kids that can work at the facility. So if you're talking about, you know, front desk stuff, we have those models that are shaping up. But as far as aquatic staff, we would partner with the vendor to use their lifeguard.
I just wanted to add that Jen, the recreation department budget is raised on the taxes only pays for the full-time staff, and actually not even all of the full-time staff, because that was one of our reductions last year. So if additional staff were needed to you know, not necessarily provide lifeguarding or
It'd be self-funded.
it would be completely self-funded, and that's how all the playground programs have run. That's how the beach programs have run historically. So.
Too bad you can't use the CPO to do the lifeguard at the lake.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, so one thing that we wanted to point out too is that just when we acquired the building, both our sanitarian and the health department and Jen went to get their CPO. So if there was ever a gap in you know, once the pool gets up and running before a vendor is brought in, you know, Jen is able to do that as well.
Is this the funding source been decided, if it's free cash or some other source yet?
So the intended funding source would be, so when it went before the capital committee, the intended funding source was free cash. Because we're still closing out the year, it would either be free cash or overlay surplus.
Oh, because we're not certified yet?
Not yet. And it would also be true as since
Just
we're
what
talking
happened
about it with
last year.
the school department article as well, the 150,000.
Yeah, for the new members last year, we almost hit that like a couple days before
But we
got
didn't.
certified, yes, so.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah. So
We do it better, but the state has to certify our free cash before you can use it.
Right.
And it
It
hadn't
hasn't
been
been
done.
certified yet.
And it isn't done yet, but last year, I think it was 2 or 3 days before town meeting, it got certified.
maybe not.
Maybe the
even.
day before, it was really close.
So-
And we would have
Hours.
changed all the motions to other,
Yeah, so that's why everything says available, well, not, the 3 articles that propose free cash say available funds. For members who don't know, we did last year and this year have had quite a bit of turnover in the department, so it's not typical, but it is that we would be concerned about not certifying free cash in time for a town meeting, but you know, it was something that we were concerned about last year, as Walter said, didn't come to fruition, but is something that we're able to deal with this year as well. So, and I should say that overlay surplus is also not raise and appropriate, so it's similar to free cash, and that's an available fund that can be used for capital projects without impacting the taxes.
and with the intent then to repay the overlay surplus? I mean, if we use 800, that's a big dollar, of overlay surplus, would we repay that out of free cash or?
No, so you wouldn't, so overlay is one account, and then when there's surplus, it's because, my understanding is that the assessor is working with our finance director to identify a need, because there's been a lot of tax title cases that have been settled recently, and that's why we might have it available. Once they move it to surplus, then it just becomes available, and if we don't use it, then it moves to free cash at the end of this
Okay.
fiscal year.
So ultimately, it's.
So ultimately,
because
it's free cash
surplus-
regardless.
It's free cash, yeah.
Because
It
it's
becomes free cash.
surplus, it's not just the overlay.
Right, exactly.
We're getting the free cash on its way into free cash.
Exactly, yes.
Interception.
Yes. Right. That's right.
And for a worst-case scenario for you, right, it doesn't get approved. You're sitting on an idle part of the building. Then what?
If the pool doesn't get approved, the
Yeah.
fit up. I mean, I think that I'm not sure that we would pursue anything in the immediate term. The select board is looking at, and as all of you are, that long-term capital plan that we'll be coming out with, where we'll be scheduling out probably that phase 1, and then the pool might be phase 2. It's not part of phase 1, potentially phase 2 or 3, which we've never talked about, but so we would have to sort of schedule that as part of the larger fit up. I mean, ultimately, if the community is not interested in having the pool, we would have to look at alternatives for the use of that space. I'm not sure what that would be, or that it would cost less than what we're proposing currently.
Giant ball pit.
Yeah.
Well, that might cost less, actually.
The world's largest ball pit.
I recommend foam. The ball always freaks me out a little
Yeah, I agree.
bit. Thank you.
So I think I understand the operating model for the pool. I was wondering if you can share any financial model behind the operations. What is going to be the revenue intake? How are we going, if we are going to build up some sort of funds to fund future renovations, the big ticket items beyond the maintenance? What would be the cost to the seniors for participating in the programs?
So I'm going to answer just one part of it, and then I'll let you answer. So a revolving fund is not intended to build up. It's not like an enterprise fund where you build up retained earnings. So if there were future capital projects, it would go through the capital process. Because it's not an enterprise fund. It's only intended to take in the amount of money needed to run the program. And that's really the financial model that we're proposing, where people would be charged for what the cost of the program would be. I'm trying to remember what the second part of your question.
Yes, and just to follow up on, on yours, would it make sense to set it up as an enterprise fund instead of the model that you're proposing?
So we already have a revolving account for the recreation department, which we would continue to use. I did mention at the select board meeting that we had talked about potentially setting up some sort of enterprise fund in the future, maybe for the entire community center, which would require a special act. So John wasn't very happy that I mentioned that publicly, but that's something that we're thinking about, that we'd really like to do. It's just we're not there yet in terms of the building being prepared to take in enough money to be run self-sustaining. But that would be, that certainly would be the goal.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
yeah.
We don't have a fee schedule set up yet. I can tell you, when we're looking at programming for seniors, right now seniors do pay a fee to participate in exercise classes that are being held at the rec center. It can range from $5 a class, $8 a class, maybe $10 depending. So oftentimes the way that works is based on the cost of the instructor, as well as setting a minimum participation. Like we would need to guarantee a certain number of participants so we knew we had the revenue. So that's how we anticipate running it, but we don't have a fee schedule yet. We've talked about doing a monthly membership for the open swim versus having people have to pay, every time they go. So we're still working through that. But one of the things we expect is we've talked to other communities, we've talked to the vendor who programmed when it was Boston Sports Club. So we're kind of working through that. And then I think once we have a schedule and understand the mix of programming, we would be able to set some of those fees.
Okay, thank you. And just out of curiosity, what's the capacity for that pool? I think it's not a full-size pool, right? It's a shallow pool and a bit smaller than what you typically expect. Not to put you on the spot, but I was wondering if we have.
We'll follow up.
Yeah,
I know we
just a
asked
curious
the
question,
vendor,
thank
but
you.
I don't
Yeah.
remember.
Thank you.
Just another note related to the programming costs. Our current senior and social services director, as an example, is running multiple programs where she's able to offset costs through grants that she's applied for. So whether it be the local cultural council or Department of Elder Services. So it's difficult to sort of pinpoint that exact fee schedule and what that would look like depending on what the program is and our ability to get grants to offset those costs.
I feel compelled to mention the serendipity that we're talking to a vendor that has a pool of lifeguards, but I guess the main part of this question was with regards to the 7% contingency. The news would be that that isn't necessarily going to be spent, but it's there in case, and the unspent portions would flow back into, and I think that was like 40,000 would flow back into free cash. To the question of the unit on top, the pool pack, and this might be a Chris question. So Article 15 last year was $800,000 for a whole bunch of other units on the top of that roof, of which we were getting rebates, but we knew that this pool pack specifically was not going to be eligible for parts of the rebates. So my question is there anything in the timing of getting an updated unit on top that would benefit from the work that's being done now or the timing of the work being done? Or is it literally a separate and distinct project with no opportunity for cost savings if it could be dovetailed with the other work?
There is maybe a slight potential that there could be some sort of simultaneous, overlapping execution of the two different projects, but there's some details that would need to be figured out. So we've already put the RTU project, which is the other project, out to bid,
Yep.
and we're in the procurement process now for that, getting towards contracting. And so, I don't know if there's a mechanism, but we would certainly explore that. Like if we had a crane there and we're loading these other RTUs on the building and this other one shows up and we can kind of use the same crane and save some money, that would be the goal. But I don't know if the mechanics of that are going to work out from not just a logistics standpoint, but also from a contracting perspective. But it's something we would certainly look at. But we haven't yet because, we need to make sure, first we need to figure out the funding and then we'll look at that part.
And I guess I'm not hearing it would be significantly material or significant material. It'd be significant. It might be a little on the edges, potentially, if anything.
It would be,
Okay.
it would be a minimal amount, but, we would look for any potential
Okay.
savings we can get.
Thank you. And the cost for the pool, the repairs, does that fill the pool with water? At some point, it's going to be filled with water,
No.
I trust.
No, it doesn't.
So is the $800,000 going to fill the pool with water? Where's the money I'd imagine that's significant as well, the cost of the water.
I don't know yet how we're going to fill the pool, if we're just going to turn the water on and let it fill up, or if there's some other possibility for us.
I hear the DPW doesn't like it when you do that.
Right.
Supposed to get a truck to capture.
So
You don't
So
want the
the answer
sewer
is
fee.
no, it's not factored in that bid. And
Okay.
there will be a cost. I don't know what the cost would be. I can't imagine it's something that's out of the, it's a cost, but I don't know. I really don't know how to answer you. We're gonna have to fill the pool. It's not part of the $529,000. How we fill it, I'm not sure. If it's filled from a truck or from.
Well, and I'm not worried about it mechanically. I guess there's a cost associated with
Right,
that.
and I'm just saying,
Additionally.
I don't know which one would be,
Yeah.
is gonna be the least expensive option, and there's other considerations as well.
And maybe the dovetail to that conversation is that the maintenance of the pool ultimately will require refreshing the water in there to some extent. Is that expected to be a cost of, a part of what we do as part of the maintenance effort? Okay, so it's really just this one-time first batch of water that I think that I'm hearing doesn't quite yet have a place to be paid for yet, but will be because we need water.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I just Googled the average cost to fill a pool ranges between $90 and $270. So if this is 2 or 3 times a pool, it's still less than $1,000.
Yeah, most pools are kind of in the ground, not a one floor up either. So just spitballing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Spitballing.
The voice from the sky.
Can we get it for $90?
No, maybe a couple grand.
I just want to follow up on a couple things. Going back to something that Prashant brought up about the one bid, is there any additional information you can give us as to why, what's so atypical about this pool that there's only one person giving us a bid? I mean, there's a lot of commercial pools in Massachusetts.
Right.
Is one person, one company servicing all of them? Is it?
So we know 2 of the other large vendors have full, their plates are full right now. They have other projects in the works, and because they're large projects, they indicated that was why they weren't bidding.
Okay.
Even if we said, you could do the work a year from now or 2 years from now, they still didn't want to bid.
That's not how the bid, we can't do that. The bid has to be specific.
certain
It
time.
has- Yeah, so.
What was the effective time for this?
We have 30 days. You basically, once you open the bids, you
Yeah.
have a limited window, so we timed it around town meeting. So the expectation would be that shortly after town meeting, were they to approve funding, the work would begin, we would execute the contract, and then the work would begin likely end of the calendar year, around that time frame.
Just one of the other things, there are a lot of pool companies, but those are not the folks that are bidding on this project. So it's a large engineering firm that's bidding on this project. And I think some of the other bids that we've gotten that we've had to reject are from maybe more residential type or commercial pool companies and they just don't have an understanding of the procurement process that we're required to go through, which is why we've had to throw them out. So to Kim's point, there's really only a couple of vendors who are familiar with the process and bid on these types of projects for a municipality in Massachusetts. The procurement steps are just not as familiar, I think, to these types of vendors.
So the perception would be, it's not a expertise issue, it's a inability to complete the bid process properly?
Inability to bid properly? Oh, from
Complete the bid process
from the bidders?
Yeah.
I think that's what we were finding with the 2 non-responsive bids, that they just weren't including all of the things that they were required to bid, and they were outside of the state, so that is not surprising. And then there just isn't as big a market within the state.
Okay. Going back to something Terry brought up, I apologize. I don't know if you'd have this off the top of your head, and I don't even remember if it was actually presented. But when we did acquire the building, was there an estimate for the entire fit-up process presented?
No.
Nothing? No ballparks or anything?
No.
Okay. And where are we with what we've spent so far?
On the pool? Or
No,
on
just in
the
general on the
building?
entire building.
I'd have to pull that together for you. The town meeting approved about $1 million for design, which I think was probably, I would say it was probably close to completely spent to get us to the point where we were at when we had the phases. So we had design of the phase 1, and then we had another level of design for phase 2. And that was, I would say that was probably almost completely spent. But in terms of all of any funds that went towards the project, I would have to go back. I did detail it in the fiscal 26 budget book, but certainly that didn't include the article. That was just operation of the building.
And just to confirm, I mean, I don't think this is directed towards you, but just to confirm what we were talking about earlier, with the revolving account and the way we're planning on funding this, it's any future improvements would need to go through capital?
Depending on the level of the improvement.
Anything similar to what we're fixing now, which, I mean, it's a concrete structure, it's a pool, it's gonna have issues. Have we modeled out what any type of maintenance plan looks like?
You have the maintenance for the maintenance costs for the pool that were provided to you. Yeah.
I mean, we don't have costs for major repairs. What we understood was the number we were carrying in our model based on the vendor who operated the pool previously, the minor repairs. And I can get more detail. I'm not a pool operator, so I can't speak to that. But they included just the sort of everyday operational maintenance and repairs, nothing of the magnitude that we're moving forward with.
And just from my, being new, are typically like an ROI done or a cost benefit analysis done for what type of projects? Do we do them for, I assume we do it for capital, and then do we do it for major expenses to see what the offset is?
I'm not understanding your question.
Well, specifically for $800,000, how do we justify it? And how do you know you got the, you're going to be able to cover the expenses that are on an operating basis as well? So you must be doing some sort of financial modeling because you're getting estimates in, and then you're knowing what your revenue is going to be.
So I think what Kim said earlier and what we want to be clear about is that we don't anticipate that the project, that the programs will fund this repair. So I think the community needs to decide if the pool is a worthy amenity, and then decide whether or not we want to get it to a point that we can start to program it in, that's using the suggested or the sample schedule and all sort of, other things that we've talked about. In terms of the programming and the revenue versus expenditure, so they have looked into it, but as I mentioned earlier, we have available to us grant opportunities that can offset program costs, that could make the fees lower. The maintenance costs, as well as the chemical costs, as well as the utility costs, have been identified by the people who previously ran the pool, and we believe that we can meet those. So I think we went through that. I'm not sure if you're looking for exact numbers. We just don't have exactly what we would be charging for a program, as an example.
No, I'm not getting into that, but
Okay.
usually you take a stance, right? Or you make a first pass assumption of, if I'm going to invest this amount of money, then, these are going to be year one of your capital. And then, year two, year 3, 4, I've got maintenance costs coming through. Then I'm going to have, revenue being generated to offset that. So at the end, the bottom line is there's, hopefully it just self-sufficiently pays for itself.
And I think that's what we've said, that's how we run all of our recreation programs. So
Yeah.
it depends on the number of programs that we're running. That also determines how much chemicals are needed and how much testing, or not testing, but the utilities. So,
So you've done all that?
well, yes, to a point, but I guess my point, what I'm trying to say is, if we decide that we're going to offer, to Walter's point, Saturday afternoon swim classes, that's going to be, or open swim, and then all day Sunday, like that's a different level of use. Then that means that you have to charge for those programs to cover the instructor, the lifeguard,
Right.
the
Yeah,
maintenance.
just like
Yes.
Jen normally does.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nope, not looking, so I'll talk. How, I recall that part of this project was to sort of make it not as deep and level it. And how much do we think that has caused the level of the person required to do this to be different than, say, changing, for lack of a better word, changing the liner? And I don't know what's in these pools, but something similar to that with the existing shape and size that was previously run. Did we look into that, or there's?
Is your question, could we isolate the cost of
Just
doing that?
whether we looked at the idea of keeping the pool
Oh, yeah.
as it is today,
Yeah.
but not leaking, which means a new liner of some sort or
Right.
something, versus I recall that a fair amount of the work was, making it 3 feet deep or 4 feet
Right.
deep the whole way. And
Jen-
also, I would suspect, puts it in a level that a lot of pool people might not do that stuff.
So-
More engineering,
Jen
concrete.
Jen can speak to it because she actually, we made sure with the architect, it
Yeah.
is from a sort of industry standard, the 3 feet 6 inches is preferable to 4 feet. I think the way I think of it, it's not detrimental. Someone who is perfectly comfortable in a 4-foot pool, somebody who maybe has more height than someone who does not, you're actually expanding the number of people who can use the pool by making the depth 3 feet 6 inches, particularly when we know there's a strong interest among seniors. Some of the initial feedback is it's appealing that it's that depth versus what it is present day. Additionally, at 3 feet 6 inches, it is still suitable for lap swimming. So.
Okay.
One last question from me. Of the non-compliant bid, how was it in the same ballpark as first price?
It was about $95,000 less.
Thank you.
Less money, but less doing things, or in theory, right? I mean, it's
I mean,
not
one of the
compliant.
major things is they weren't certified by the State Department Capital, one of the state agencies that they have to, for projects that size, they weren't certified through the state.
All right. Thank you, guys.
If I'm sticking to the agenda, would it be premature to adjourn?
I actually was just looking at the time. You messed it up this time, Josh. It was really optimistic of you, though. All right. So given that we have today and Thursday, we probably want to see if there are any additional articles we're comfortable voting at this time. I know at least one of them now we're going to want to wait and vote on the floor. So that was 12.
Any reason not to vote on this one?
Yeah. Does everyone feel ready to vote? Do we want time to consider?
Should we know the funding source, which we don't know yet?
Well, it's
So the
free
reality,
cash or the overlay.
yeah, I mean, the reality is either funding source is going to eventually be free cash.
Yeah.
I don't know that the funding source would, and I guess that if it changes anyone's opinion, then we could have that debate. I am reluctant to leave this one out of the R&R. So I would like to try and vote this one today or Thursday if we can, because I do think it's going to be one of the bigger conversational ones. And I think that it's worth us having our opinion in the book. So where I consider, I mean, the surplus is the same essentially as free cash.
Can we put, as we word the motion carefully, can we put in the notes that we are assuming or that it is essentially free cash? That, we voted with the theory it was free cash.
Well, I mean, it is free cash, right? The overlay, if not used, would revert to free cash eventually, right? So it's just next year's free
Right.
cash rather than this year's.
Yeah, but I'm saying, can we just make a note of that? Because to somebody who doesn't know the fine points, it might look different. But, we're saying, okay, this is next, this year's versus next year's free cash. It just has a different name this year.
We could make the motion to, because we can re-vote if it's different, but make it from free cash or the overlay surplus.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
it's one of those two.
So we can do that, and then if
we're
for some
okay.
reason it is different.
I don't
at
know if that
point.
helps, Beth, because that would clearly state
Well, I just
what we
wanna
thought.
So, that takes care of our motion making sense to match up to the real motion. I think I just want to note in the R&R saying that the overlay surplus would, if not spent this year, would convert to free cash.
I mean, I guess we could add that in sort
I
of the
want the average
committee.
person who doesn't follow the nuances.
Yeah, Beth, I think we could add that in sort of the committee, right, in our committee
Notes.
statement that,
In our one sentence blurb,
yeah.
you know, because I think the average person showing up at town meeting does not necessarily know the fine point distinctions of free cash versus overlay surplus.
I quite agree.
Okay, I ask a couple questions. Just how common is this to have only one qualified bidder?
So I will tell you, working at a university that had major pool repairs, that we spent 3 years finding someone to do custom pool concrete work. So the reality is, it is very different than your home, right? So I have a pool at home and I got 4 guys to come out and tell me how much to replace my liner next week. I had to do custom concrete work in a pool at the university and it took us 3 years to find someone to do it. So I don't know how, it's a state agency and also, right, I mean, I'm not incredibly surprised. I mean, I
Okay.
think that it just sort of is the world we live in and custom pool work. Also, the question of the water, we just had our pool filled, we trucked in water, it was $1,500 and my pool is much larger. It's not upstairs, so, but I don't think in the grand scheme of the total budget, I would imagine it's probably
I
not
would think
material.
a couple grand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my only comment there would be, I think it would be worth, I think the kind of questions we had this time would probably be somewhat similar. I don't want to speak on the behalf of public, but then they would have similar questions as well. So it might be worth getting more information that, yes, like you said, it's common for one bid to come just because of the way the procurement process is. But it may also be worth finding out from other towns, because every town has got some, or they have got swimming pools, they have got, and it's more at a public level, not really at a, private pools. So it may be worth finding out, not just for the pool, but overall in general, like are they also struggling with getting bids? Is this time for also re-looking at our procurement process where we can make it more easier for people to bid and participate?
It would be delightful if we had.
We
the
have to
choice.
comply with the state.
Yeah, while complying with the state, of
And there are
course.
very few communities that have pools, so it's, we reached out to a few that we knew that had pools to make sure we weren't missing out on
Okay.
others.
Yeah, so I mean, if you have already done the due diligence, then it might be worth also communicating, because these are the things which, come out that how come single bids. So thank you so much for explaining that as well.
I do think it's a good point, and sort of in your presentation.
Yep.
Because everybody heard last year we only got one bid and it was really high, so we're gonna pull it. If we go back and say we only got one bid again, we might explain that we think that's the reality of the market and that it came in lower, right, that we feel good about the bid we got. Because I do think it is gonna be a red flag for people.
Just to hear it, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
So I just went through the rest of the list, and the other ones we want to hear from some more information next week. So this pool is really the only one
Yeah.
for tonight. I mean, not next week, Thursday.
Thursday,
Feels
yeah.
like a
It's
week
just
away,
Thursday,
but it's
right?
only
This
3
is-
It
days.
is Thursday, yeah. So I think we'll vote, and there's only a handful left, so I think we'll have to vote the rest on Thursday. So I think it's just this one tonight.
And is it not common to actually see like an ROI analysis done on projects like this?
I don't know what you, it's
this-
not a business, so the return on investment's a little bit
Well, you can
odd.
you can guess, you can do some estimating.
They're not
So we
trying
try
to make
and-
a return on the capital part of the project.
But they still have the maintenance, they still have the ongoing operating expenses
Right,
that they're gonna have
which
to
they
cover
said
through that
should cover.
CPO.
So I think the reality here is probably because they have the
Okay.
revolving fund, the expectation from the vendor is that the vendor's fees will cover the ongoing cost and they don't have to worry about it. The vendor will be responsible for the ongoing cost. And so I don't think that they probably did that sort of detailed analysis. I will tell you, the last time they brought it to us, they had done sort of an ROI and had some mock-up of if we had this many lessons and this many dollars, trying to really show what it would take to cover the cost of the repairs. And then while we were in the meeting, I built a spreadsheet and said that that doesn't make any sense. And so I think at this point, we've just accepted the repairs are too costly to recoup that cost in birthday parties and lessons. And so it becomes a question is, do we as a town think
Right.
it's worth, and so then there's not really an ROI analysis to
Right.
do. Are we
Right.
willing to pay $600,000 to have a pool?
I just figured that
The
was.
reality is
These
you
have to be covered.
don't, they don't pay for the gymnasium with the rec basketball fees either. They pay for the staff that
Right.
has to run the gym and clean up and the electricity in the room. But the capital to have built the school
Right.
was paid outside of the rec department.
Yeah,
So
I just
it's the same model.
I do think, though, if it were the country club, I might expect to see something different because they do have the enterprise fund and there is an expectation that they fund their own capital. But because the rec department isn't funding their own capital,
Yeah.
their user fees, sort of by definition, aren't covering this cost, right? That's the difference between an enterprise and a
Yeah,
revolving
I wouldn't
fund.
expect it to either, but I figured year zero, put it aside, but just to make sure, like, we're not exposing any more uncovered expenses, as long as the model's working.
Yeah, I mean, and I think we got a level of comfort from that. I did question and was wondering sort of along those lines, though. So what if in year 3 the vendor says, actually,
Yeah.
we don't want to do this anymore? Are we comfortable that there's a solid market out there that someone else wants to, right, that we're not stuck figuring out how to stand up our own? I mean, certainly we would have a contract for whatever length of time, but I think that there is some risk there. And I think to some extent we have to assume that risk, but I think that would be sort of my concern is we're really now dependent on a third party.
Yeah.
I would echo that. I would also echo the concern around, it's not so much ROI, but let's say the first year, the first amount it's gone, sunk cost, we've decided that's what we're willing to spend. I'd like to see some more work done on what is the 5-year cost for maintenance, what is the 10-year cost for maintenance, because that isn't rolled into these operating expenses, and we don't expect the model that's being presented to cover it. Now, to what you just said about, are there enough vendors out there to replace this one if they stop? I would also love to answer that, but we should have a better understanding of, they've said they can do it, and they did it at BSC, but what are those numbers? You know, do we
Can they give us
have,
a pro forma?
yeah, what,
Yeah.
you know, we should have a way to assess how reasonable it is, and they're not just thinking we can build this from the ground up. You know, will we be able to command the same type of dollars to swim there as BSC did? Did BSC have any other fees that were paid as out of their membership fees, or, you know, do we have a deep understanding of what they're modeling? You know, we're at a point where we just came out of the tri-board a couple meetings ago talking about level service. I'm a little concerned that we're now adding something that's above level service that we don't have clarity on the 5-year impact, the
I do think
10-year
the
impact.
lack of a 5-year capital plan, you're right, is sort of concerning because we know the pump's going to need to be replaced at some point. That whatever, right? I mean,
Yeah,
pools are
I mean, whatever
expensive.
we're doing right now will eventually, it might not be in 5 years, 10 years, or even 20 years, but it will need to happen again. What are those timescales? Is there something that happened in this instance that 20 years or 15 years was sooner than it should have been? Are we fixing that? I mean, I just don't have those answers right now, and I don't see any context around them.
Who negotiates the contractor contracts, the obligations?
So for the vendor,
With the vendor, yeah.
so I would assume that is it actually Christy? Would you be the one that would sign the contract? Yes.
Would
So
you
the town
do the
has to issue an
negotiation?
RFP.
You don't negotiate. We would
Yeah.
develop a bid document, and then that's the basis for, we would detail. You typically can't negotiate. So if we're looking, in this case, the basis for award would be revenue. Whoever offers us the highest revenue for what we're asking for would likely be the awarded vendor, provided they can meet all the requirements of the contract. One of the things in the contract would be the provision of swim lessons and lifeguard training. And part of the model, and one of the things we've spoken with the vendor about, is they've had success with moving staff or moving students. They actually do outreach, work with the schools, identify students, and will, for a very low cost, do lifeguard training. So part of what we envision in this model, because we've had those discussions, you know, if we have a vendor for a few years and something changes, we really look at this as an opportunity to start to build to have lifeguards that we can then turn to. And it's still challenging, but we've started to see numbers come back from COVID kind of decimated the ranks of lifeguarding. So we're trying to, we expect that we would have the ability to work with the vendor to really develop more lifeguards. We're hopeful, and we've had the conversation, well, it's not directly part of this arrangement, but what this might yield would be lifeguards to work at the beach over the summer.
Beth, did you have a question?
Well, I was just going to say that one of the important things of this contract is exactly that, is the lifeguard training, which is a good life skill for our local teens or anybody who's interested in being a lifeguard, but would also help us insure against the vendor deciding to leave for other climes. That if we have a good network of lifeguards in town, then we can maybe buffer till we get the next vendor in place. So, you answered the question.
All right. Are we ready for a motion?
I'll take the
I
hint.
just assume it's you now.
I guess so. Playing the role of Gene McMahon. I move the ASC recommends the town meeting votes in favor of, let's see, transferring from either free cash or overlay surplus $799,675 for the purpose of repairing the community center pool facility, including the HVAC unit.
Lundberg, second.
Any more discussion?
Just the observation that in the end, this comes down to, is this a year where we're gonna feel comfortable putting an $800,000 capital request on at a time that, again, I think there's a concern that things seem really expensive. I laud the work that's been done to research this. I mean, I'm less concerned about some of the variability in this, because the rec department has done a phenomenal job of running programs that cover their costs, and all that being said, in 10 years, 15 years, we're going to need another $500,000 to stand something up. So is this something in this year that we really need to stand up now?
And maybe a comment before we vote, a comment from me, and maybe I'm misinterpreting something, but it seems to me that the town is funding 800,000 pool improvement for a third party to run a commercial operation on, not to worry about any capital expenses in the future, just the maintenance cost, for a certain benefit to our town people and taxpayers that they will still have to pay for. So I struggle to really connect the dots here and justify that expenditure.
And at the same time, I think it's going to just get more expensive if we delay fixing the pool and we know the town wants a pool.
Well, we don't know that though, right? It's conjecture. We think the town wants the pool.
All the times that there's been surveys, the
Yeah.
pool's been fairly high on the list of requests.
Yeah, but I could argue, when I was on the golf building committee, it was overwhelming that we wanted to, replace the building with a new building too, and that got shot down.
But to be fair, the point of town meeting would be people could vote whether they want a pool or not
Yep.
with this article. So I'm not making my choice on whether I think everybody wants the pool or not, because they can make their own choice on whether they want it.
I think it goes back to the funding level for level of service, kind of exposure.
All right.
Speak.
You're on the spot.
You're the
Yes, first.
No, so Ahuja, no. Just for the reasons that we have discussed about it, I think we need like Josh said, we need a better plan in terms of what the maintenance cost will be, how much of it will be covered. Plus, getting yourself exposed to a single vendor, if that's difficult, I think we can wait.
Bloomberg, yes.
Bradley, no.
Brant, no.
Chimala, no.
Clap, no.
Leslie, yes.
O'Day, no.
The motion fails. We got 8 tonight.
6.
So it was 2-6.
Or we
Yeah, now we have to.
Yeah, we're gonna have to revote.
The other way.
Okay.
What happened?
We have to vote the other way.
Oh.
Well, that doesn't pass, you can't
Got it.
pass in the negative.
Yeah.
Motion doesn't carry. Okay. So I move that the that the AFC recommends town meeting to defeat the article to for $799,675 for the swimming pool repair and rooftop unit.
Bradley, second.
I don't think the funding sources is important if you're saying no, right?
Yeah.
Ahuja, yes.
Bloomberg, no.
Bradley, yes.
Brant, yes.
Chimala, yes.
Clap, yes.
Leslie, no.
O'Day, yes.
Okay, so that passed at 6-2-0.
Quick question, do we need to take are the HVAC units that are specific to the pool, do they need to be accounted for or dealt with separately if we don't do the pool?
I don't believe so.
I mean, I get the impression they're not gonna do anything in this space now, so I don't see why they would need to replace the
No
AC
Pulo,
units.
no HVACO.
Well, I think the pool has far greater HVAC requirements because you have to vent the area, there's heat, there's humidity. It was a specialized unit. If you turned it into a ping pong table or something, it would probably, the air from the room next door would probably take care of it.
Well, and my sort of point was, though, they had already indicated if it's not gonna be a pool, it's probably gonna sit for a while, so you
Yeah.
wouldn't even need to worry about
Yeah, we
the
don't have to
air at
worry about
all.
Nope.
All right. My computer's frozen, so I can't keep track of any of these votes or make
got
notes
the
of our
votes.
comments. I've
Nothing
got
like a
nothing.
frozen computer.
It's like the 47th time today. Happy Monday,
You've overworked it.
I guess. All right, so I think that's all we have to vote tonight. That leaves us with liaison reports and assignments.
Sorry,
that's good.
I apologize, but
Nope.
I think the one which Chris gave, which is the roads, could we put a contingent vote on that, given if the
We'll just
know.
vote on it before town meeting.
I mean, we could. I thought it's easier to just vote it on the floor.
and the day of the town?
Because we're
Okay.
not going to put comments in the book, and that was my only concern with like this one. I want to make sure anywhere we have
Sure.
comments. None of us are really going to have comments on whether or not we accept a road that
Yeah.
Chris said we should accept.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. No, that's fair. That's fair.
So,
Yeah, given that the select board won't have voted either in our booklet, and that the pertinent information doesn't come till a couple days
Town.
before town meeting,
Yeah.
it really makes more sense not to support it until we know that they're getting the work
right.
done.
I would hate for our vote to say we support it contingent, and then it didn't happen, and now we have to explain that our vote was wrong.
We'd have, yeah, we're gonna have to explain it either way.
Right.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right. Liaison assignments, liaison reports.
No, I just want to thank Andrew, who took my spreadsheet and put in a whole bunch of nice automation into it, so that moving forward, it'll be easier
Wow.
to tally votes, and hopefully read it for all you. So I will be putting today's vote into that and sending it back out, and
All
y'all
right.
can judge that
That's good, because
yourselves.
mine is frozen.
Yeah, since yours is frozen, but
Okay.
yeah, it's pretty neat. Good
Um,
modernization.
Future draft agendas, so Thursday, I was gonna say Friday, I'm not gonna be here Friday. That Thursday, planning will be here. We have presentations specific to BWALT. Christie will present on a couple things, and hopefully we can vote the last 5 articles we have to vote.
Yep.
I guess maybe there are 2 more we can vote tonight if we want to do the citizens petitions tonight. We did not vote them last week. I don't think we have any further information we're waiting on.
There was some interest in hearing from what the town's position on it was, and I thought that's one of the things Christie was talking about. Is
Oh,
that
okay.
not correct?
Okay, well
Maybe
then
it's
we'll
not
wait and
correct,
hear
but-
that
Yeah,
Thursday.
that was my hope, yeah.
Yeah, good
Okay.
memory.
Perfect. Then we will wait
I
on
mean, I
to
could
this.
vote, but if we want to hear the official position, that's okay too.
Okay. Then that's all I have.
Other than, yeah, I guess Thursday night, we will have to approve the R&R as conjured up anyway.
Will you be sharing a version of the R&R that we can read?
Yes,
that?
so I started on it over the weekend. I am waiting for John Steinberg to provide data. He is out today, he's back tomorrow. He said that's sort of top of his list. So I'm hoping I'll get that back from John and send it all out, maybe tomorrow, maybe Wednesday. We're gonna have a pretty tight turnaround because it's a short amount of time since we don't have the Monday meeting.
Thank
But
you.
yeah,
Yeah, in my experience, that's the tough part because you kind of need that numbers and then you kind of get them and then you get a couple of updates and then you're changing them right before it goes to the printer and et cetera, et cetera. But it's always that the timing's tight for us.
By definition.
Yeah, I wish we get those numbers sooner, but it doesn't seem to happen.
okay,
Move to adjourn?
thanks. Thought nobody was gonna say it.
Second?
Oja, yes, sorry.
Blumberg, yes.
Bradley, yes.
Brant, yes.
Shimada, yes.
Clap yes.
To me, Leslie, yes.
OJ, yes.
We're adjourned. Thank you, Westborough TV.